Cooperative learning is a way to get your students engaged and excited about what you have to bring to the classroom.
If you're going to be a productive member in 21st century society, then you got to learn to work with everybody. You've got to learn to work with those that you like and those that you don't like.
It made me a better professor, and it made my students a better product.
We are at our best when we're connected to each other, when we talk and interact and spark ideas from one another. We're at our worst when we're isolated and disconnected, and it's a mark of our species that we are in a family and in a village and in a group, and that we grow up that way.
I wish they had used this when I was in college.
Cooperative learning is a successful teaching strategy in which small groups of students work together to solve problems, do research, review material, and accomplish other learning tasks. Research shows that cooperative learning promotes academic achievement, increases retention, helps develop study and social skills, and promotes self-esteem. In a nutshell, cooperative learning consists of 5 basic elements. Positive interdependence, where each member makes a contribution and relies on the others to do the same. Face-to-face interaction. Individual and group accountability, where each member is held responsible for his or her work and the group as a whole is responsible for a task. Interpersonal and group skills, and group processing. Patrick Henry Community College faculty have implemented cooperative learning strategies in recent years and found it to be an invaluable tool in the success of our students.
You're going to count off for me 1 to 4, and we're going to move super quick because, as you know, jigsaw takes a good hour. We've done a couple jigsaws already. This is going to take us a little bit of time. Count off 1 to 4. Remember your numbers. To be good learners, it's an active process. So when we can get students somehow involved, collaborative learning being one way, if we can somehow get them taking ownership of their own learning, playing a part, becoming a participant in their own learning, then inevitably it's going to enhance their retention of the material, and then ideally get them motivated to come back the next semester, the next year.
And historically, students have been sitting in classrooms passively, just taking notes, memorizing them, and regurgitating them on a test. We're finding that students need to be actively engaged in the learning process. We also know that at the community college level, we have a variety of not only students, but learning styles. We don't just have auditory learners. We can't just lecture for an hour and expect everybody to grasp the material. So active learning, particularly cooperative learning, engages not only students, but students with different learning styles. So I think it's a very effective way to break up lecture and to get students involved in the learning process.
Cooperative learning is more than just putting students in groups. Yes, it is a type of group work, but it's very structured in that students have specific roles. The whole group is working towards a common goal. There's group processing going on, and we work on social skills. So it's not just, here's the assignment, go work in a group.
Let me take a look at everybody.
There are educators who'll come and say, I tried this in the past, it didn't work, and I've moved on. Or educators sometimes have the mentality that if I don't talk about it, it hasn't been taught. To that, we always have a lot to say. In fact, one of the first things is that group learning or group work is not the same as collaborative learning. Just putting students in groups and saying go to it is destined for failure. If they're not very specific learning goals and learning outcomes, then that's not going to be successful. At the same time, what we're looking at is not just the mentality of I've got to teach it or I've got to talk about it, but we're trying to get everyone involved in the learning process. Any educator knows that if a student sits there like a lump on the log, then they're not learning very much. Osmosis is not a very good learning tool. That if they get involved, they're much more apt to retain the information and take leadership and ownership of the material.
When you're able to provide cooperative learning activities in which students are responsible for either reviewing or presenting for the first time material to other students, they are learning it.
the bottom line is that we want students to be responsible for their own learning. And you cannot be a passive learner in cooperative learning. You can't sit back in the back and sleep. If it's just two of you in a group, you're either both going to be sleeping or you're both going to be working. And I've never had two to sleep like that. I just made that up.
Yeah. I use basically 3 different aspects of cooperative learning. I have base groups, which at the beginning of the semester I put groups in students in groups of 4, and throughout the semester they have to do activities in that group of 4. I also do an informal, so for a test review or if it's a hard concept, I'll put people in random groups and then they'll have to do a project together. I also use the formal setting, and that's at the end of the semester. They have a semester-long project and they'll get a grade at the end of the semester after they complete all the different tasks of that project.
In nursing, everybody knows we have to have a cohesive team in order to effectively take care of our patients. It's a team effort. Now, if we have a patient that something is going awry with, we sit down as a team and we discuss it. Okay, do you think we need to do this before we call the doctor? Do you think we need to do this before we call the doctor? And so basically what happens is, if everybody collectively agrees with it, then okay, we're on the same page.
One of the classes that I use it in is PowerPoint, and I will give them a topic. They will work in groups to come up with a topic, a layout, design, those kinds of things, and they have to work collaboratively to come together and decide on what to use, how to use it, what to put in it, and so forth, and then they present it as a group.
It's learning how to communicate effectively, and in working your communication, you thereby end up working collectively and producing a product that hopefully will save somebody's life one day.
You are the expert now in that unit, in that chapter. When we get those faculty members who are resistant to this, if we can present them not just with our opinion and our ideas, but with that sound research that shows that this is going to make a drastic improvement in your students' abilities to remember the information and to absorb it and to process it, then I think you can win over some naysayers.
Yeah, one of the challenges in setting up a good cooperative learning activity is to structure it so that there are no slackers, or those that would tend to be slackers don't have the opportunity to do that. And that particular element is called individual accountability. And it requires that each student in the group have a designated role or a resource that they're responsible for.
You do have to think ahead and prepare, but like I said, there are 5 basic elements, and if you're putting the elements in all your activities, it becomes a part of you. And you can take a PowerPoint that you already have and adapt certain parts of it and incorporate a think, pair, share, or make a handout so that they're working in a group to review what they learned. Of course, that doesn't sound like a challenge, but to me, it's not a big challenge. It's just the way it should be.
It's great for me as an instructor when I walk in and the base group has already gone over the homework questions and already have prepared to ask the problem that they had with that, so that it minimizes that type of busy work time that you can get bogged down with. From a teacher perspective, I love watching the students interact. I love watching them learn from each other. I have no problem proudly saying that they understood it better when their neighbor described it to them than when I did. My job is not to make sure they all learn it from me, but just to make sure that they're all getting the content of the classroom. So the rewards are almost never ending. Just
watching them be happy about it and know they're learning. They don't even realize they're learning. I had a lady to say, "I like the way you teach." And I think it's because we do different things, that they're not just sitting there listening to me.
It's been very helpful to me, and I think it's been very helpful to the students. Gives me a chance to kind of get around to them a little bit more because they're in groups. I can stand and listen or give them feedback, whereas I may not have that opportunity to do it just in a regular computer class where they're going step by step.
Education should be fun. It shouldn't be sitting in a classroom writing letters or thinking about lunch if your professor is boring. you should want to come to class and you should want to interact with people, because the more people you know in a classroom, the longer you're going to stay in school. And if you have a problem, you have more people to help you with that problem to keep you in school.
The single most important thing about cooperative learning is that it builds positive relationships among students. And while there's such an emphasis on academics, there's clear evidence that the more students like each other, the more committed they'll become to education, the harder they'll study, the better their long-term retention of the material being learned.
As a faculty member, if you're looking for ways to re-energize your classroom and get your students involved, cooperative learning is the way to go.